While Lebanon produces little hard, up-to-date economic data, the shattering position of business owners, reports from union leaders, industry groups, and traders paint a picture of an economic and financial crisis without precedent since independence in 1943. Decades of corruption and financial mismanagement by warlords-turned-politicians and the cabal of business elites combined with a greedy banking sector to plunge Lebanon's rentier economy into its worst crisis in living memory. More than 300,000 jobs in the private sector have been shed since mid-October, when protests fueled by worsening economic conditions erupted against the political elite. Experts have agreed that it's a social catastrophe. This is the heaviest one-shot drop since the end of the civil war in the country, and there seems no end in sight. Most businesses are frozen, stuck between banks that will not cash checks and suppliers demanding payment in US dollars that disappeared from the financial market. Hard-hit businesses were dealt yet another blow when Lebanon ordered malls, restaurants, and other venues to close to stop the spread of the coronavirus pandemic, as well as halting flights from the worst-hit countries. Lebanon's Prime Minister Hassan Diab is holding the country's central bank governor Riyad Salameh responsible for the downward spiral of the national currency, the lira. The Prime Minister accused Salameh of pursuing opaque policies that sent the lira crashing against the dollar. The tiny Mediterranean country of about 5 million people, one of the most indebted in the world, is no longer hanging off a cliff. It is officially in free-fall mode, just like its currency. Welcome to the Mideastream. I'm Marwa Osman. The past 6 months have brought hardships unseen in Lebanon, even during the bitter days of its 15-year civil war that ended in 1990. Decades of corruption and financial mismanagement by warlords-turned-politicians and a cabal of business elites combined with the greedy banks to plunge Lebanon's economy into its worst crisis in living memory. To discuss this issue with us from Beirut is Dr. Nasri Harb, economist from Izal University. Thank you for being with us, Dr. Nasri. Now, the past 6 months have been very tough on Lebanon, and now the monetary and economic authorities have failed in their duty to supposedly protect the value of the national currency, which is the lira, at an exchange rate which this morning was 4,000 Lebanese lira to the dollars, and then it changed to 4,200 Lebanese lira to the dollar, which is 1.6 times its official rate. What do you think should be done to safeguard what is left of the national security in this country?
Okay, hi Marwa. Actually, the Lebanese government is in a situation that nobody envies it. Okay, it's in the midst of a crisis, a multi-pronged crisis. Okay, the main issue now is who is going to pay for the misbehavior of the government, for misconducting the financial, fiscal and monetary policy. Who will pay for this mistake? Elite, small depositors, taxpayers, or even the future generation? Basically and economically speaking, what should be done in this, at this stage is to stop the depreciation of the lira. Okay, we were at 4,000 and this morning, and like a couple of days ago we were at 3,000, now 4,000, and tomorrow we are heading to a higher level. Okay, so what we need to do is really stop the depreciation of the lira plus a strict capital control. Okay, a well-organized capital control, because you need to calm the market. That's one. That's in the very short run. That's the immediate action, plus restructuring of the bank. What we need to do, people need to see, need to relax, need to see that, to trust the system again, at least the basic stuff. So I believe there is also a big plan here, a big problem with the banking system is that who will pay for restructuring the banking system? Should we go to bail-in program or a bail-out program? Bail-out is very difficult to obtain funds from abroad. Bail-in is within the fight. Who will pay for the bail-in? The small depositor, the large depositor, and so on. So in the very short run, in the immediate action, so these two actions are necessary. First, stopping the depreciation with a strict capital control, and two, restructuring the banks. In a little longer horizon, like I won't say like longer, it means like it should be done like not next year, but very soon as well. We have two action: enhancing judicial body, okay, and two, come up with a real economic plan.
What do you mean by enhancing the judicial body? What for?
Fighting corruption. Fighting corruption, because this country is heading nowhere, and there is a huge amount of funds that have been stolen from this government, from the people. Okay, so we need to catch up and get back at least some part of them. That will help in two sides. One, it will help bring back some money, and two, bring back some trust to the government.
Well, Dr. Harb, already ravaged livelihoods are now buckling under the economic disruption of the coronavirus pandemic, as well to this economic chaos in Lebanon. It is forcing people to seek aid from the government for the first time probably in their lives, and only a fraction of those who are in need of these kinds of financial aid from the government are actually qualified for this assistance. So is government aid here enough to try and fix the lives of those who are truly in need?
Well, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The government is paying 400,000 lira. Before the crisis, this was come to 266 US dollar. But with the today's rate, they are even less than $100. Prices in Lebanon are not cheaper than abroad. They are very expensive. So 400,000 lira are never enough. However, what can you do? The government is broke. And we need to shut down the businesses in order to protect the population. Like if we don't shut down businesses and businesses will operate as usual, the health bill for the government will be huge. So it's better, like two better choices. The least bitter one is to shut down businesses and pay 400,000.
Well, this would have, as you just said, it would have actually worked well if the economy was not in shatters in Lebanon. But a very important part of the problem that the media has been talking about throughout the past couple of weeks is the role of the BDL, Banque du Liban, what is known as the Lebanese Central Bank. They tried to solve the hyperinflation that you spoke about in this very small import-dependent economy in Lebanon by first issuing central bank circulars. They were issuing circulars faster than the health circulars. We were seeing one circular per week speaking about a different rate each time. They tried printing money, which is a disaster, and they tried freezing public spending. They obviously just worsened the situation here, but could you pinpoint to us how they actually worsened the situation?
Printing those circulars were not credible because you cannot implement them. That's what was obvious. Yeah, this morning or yesterday we had a BDL circular that obliged everybody to sell the dollar at 3,200, and now in the market it was equal to 4,000. It became a joke in the media. If you have seen the media, social media, everybody was laughing at this decision. That's one. Two, regarding printing money per se is not the cause of the inflation. Printing money, what happened is that people were running into the banks to withdraw their deposits. And so the amount of cash required from the population became very high. So like normally people will hold, for instance, 10% or 20% of their need cash of their need money in form of cash. The remaining would stay in the bank in form of checking account or current account. But now everybody is withdrawing the money, withdrawing his cash. So you need to print the money. The problem is when you are printing money and people are withdrawing this money, nobody is willing to keep this money cash because it loses value every day. I was just at Carrefour now, and people were lining up because Carrefour is adjusting its prices this evening. So they are scaling up the prices. So, like your money, this is a normal phenomenon in hyperinflation. People want to get rid of their money immediately. So they withdraw the money from the banks, get rid of them by either purchasing goods or services or converting them to US dollars. So in this way, they can at least cover or help or keep a part of this wealth, if you want.
Well, the ruling class in Lebanon, who seems to be still sitting on the sidelines, they are driving the economy into chaos. This is what most of the media is reporting about in Lebanon. And they're saying that they're doing so in order to better rule the people of this country, especially the poorer ones in this country, and most probably buy the remaining assets. And we're talking about the remaining governmental assets, public assets, cheaply in order to maybe harden their grip on the country's political, social, and economic decision-making process. This is exactly what they did in 1992, just after the end of the 15-year civil war in Lebanon. Do you think this will actually work again?
I don't believe it will happen as easy as it happened in 1992. First, the previous economic system has proven false. It didn't work. Two, we are in an era of social media. Like everybody knows everything. Government, political elite, economical elite cannot hide everything. Everything is being published, and people knows everything. That's from the one side. From the other side, despite all the controversial 17th of October protest, it had a positive impact. People now are willing to move, to protest, to fight against any government action, whether you agree with it or not. These guys have brought in some awareness. So a third one, many politicians have taken decision, it was in their election program to fight corruption. So, and there is an election that is coming, I think in 2 years or 2.5 years. They should appear, they should present something to their electors, to the people, to show them that we are fighting corruption. So these are three factors that can help in fighting corruption and fighting this stealing the public asset. However, whether it will work or not, I go back to the first point that we are in the mid of a fight between many people in this country, with elite people, politicians, and reformists. Who will win? Well, it's really difficult to say, but I'm quite optimistic.
Well, in hopes for the best for this small Mediterranean country. Thank you very much, Dr. Nasri Harb, economist from Uzal University, for being with us. Please stay tuned for our next segment about Palestine. Israelis are sparing no effort to complete the process of Judaization. In light of the world's preoccupation with the fight against the COVID-19 epidemic, the pace of settlement expansion in al-Quds has increased, with more than 17,700 settlement units being built just within the past 2 months. Israel exploits COVID-19 pandemic to expand illegal settlements in this following report. The Israeli occupation authorities unequivocally exploited the coronavirus pandemic by annexing more illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank, including Jerusalem, as an extension of Israel's dominion over the Jordan Valley and northern Dead Sea continues. The Israeli regime intends to build 2 railways, where the Jewish communities adjacent to the Al-Aqsa Mosque are linked together, while increasing and intensifying settlement construction as well as building new settlement units to attract more illegal colonial settlers. The District Planning and Building Committee in the occupation municipality in al-Quds revealed a settlement project on the Jabal al-Mukabir's land south of the occupied Jerusalem. The Israeli regime intends to build 410 settlement units, public facilities, and a 100-room hotel, as well as link the new settlement neighborhood with the light rail network and the public network with the railway in the country by the year 2024. Add to that another project planned in the Gilo settlement on the southern outskirts of al-Quds. The plan focuses on building 1,300 housing units, 100,000 square meters for public buildings, 25,000 square meters for commercial areas, 20,000 square meters for workshops, 15,000 acres of open areas, and 83 acres northeast of the settlement to build a school and sports and cultural clubs. Meanwhile, colonial settler and Jewish extremist violence against West Bank Palestinians has spiked by 78% during the last 2 weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic when compared to the rest of the year, as per a new report by the United Nations. In the midst of a global preoccupation with combating the outbreak of the coronavirus, the Israeli forces continue to storm Palestinian cities, assaulting the civilian population without taking any preventive measures and completely ignoring the dangers this behavior might cause in light of the spread of the infection in Israeli-controlled territories. The Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor has documented carrying out 207 Israeli incursions into Palestinian cities in the West Bank and East al-Quds. These incursions included the arrest of 191 Palestinians, attacks on dozens of others, and demolishing Palestinian houses. To discuss this issue with us from London is Robert Inlakish, who is a journalist and a political commentator who has visited multiple times the occupied territories in Palestine. Thank you very much for being with us, Robert. Now, the UN Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process, Nikolai Mladenov, has issued a warning against the Israeli regime's intention to annex parts of the occupied West Bank, even while fighting this COVID-19. The Israelis just are on full occupation mode here, and they are not even giving Palestinians, while annexing their land, any medical aid to fight the COVID-19. Do you think they will get away with this?
I do believe they will get away with this. Firstly, what Netanyahu has declared is that they will annex the major settlement blocks, and then after annexing the settlements, then we can expect them to go on and annex the Jordan Valley as well as the northern Dead Sea area. And keep in mind that if you combine that with the illegal apartheid wall, which is already built, which constitutes 10% of the West Bank, and the Jordan Valley and Dead Sea area constituting 30% of the West Bank, and add the settlements onto that, that's pretty much half of the West Bank that they're taking away from the Palestinians. And of course, they've already declared, and of course, US President Donald Trump has declared that Jerusalem al-Quds is the capital of Israel, undivided capital. So at this moment, they've got away with everything else. They've got away with annexing officially and having the recognition from the United States of the Golan as belonging to them. They get away with their numerous assaults on the Gaza Strip, and the United Nations does little to nothing. I mean, Israel, during this COVID-19 outbreak, bombed the Gaza Strip, has shot people dead in the West Bank on multiple occasions, has continued to aggress, has demolished emergency facilities in the Jordan Valley, and the list goes on and on and on. And there's nothing that has been done about it. In fact, the US hasn't even picked up on it.
Well, just as you mentioned, Robert, the Israeli regime continues its arrest campaigns and attacks through the use of tear gas, and especially in a number of al-Quds neighborhoods. This is an open and continuous onslaught against the Palestinians here, and it's clearly that the international community couldn't care less. What do you think the options here are for the Palestinians right now?
Well, the options here for the Palestinians is to continue to live on their land, continue to stay there, to continue to resist, whether that be through nonviolent protests, civil disobedience measures, or whether it be through armed resistance. And that's really what we've seen. people like myself and many others have been stressing over the years that during the Great Return March, which started on the 30th of March 2018, that with the 330 plus Palestinian demonstrators who were shot dead, the 40,000 plus Palestinian demonstrators who were unarmed, by the way, were injured, that during this time where this was happening and these demonstrations were going on, that this was the time for the international community to stand up. And this was the time to do something like ending the siege of the Gaza Strip. But it didn't happen. No Israeli killed on the other side. However, the Western press continued to demonize the Palestinians and claim that the Palestinians were somehow violent and there were somehow clashes as Palestinians were hundreds of meters in most cases behind the fence when they were shot dead, not with arms. And so at the moment, Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, of course, have to turn to armed resistance. There's no other way. And they're do this as well to fight the occupation. And this is something that a lot of people forget, is that the Palestinians have the right under the 4th Geneva Conventions and also a number of stipulations in international law and the United Nations recognize this, that they have the right to expel a foreign occupation through armed force. And that's really the only thing left at this point, is to resist with force, because they've been shot dead and they've been gassed and they've continued to have their houses demolished every single time they try and stand up in civil disobedience or nonviolent protests. It's a sad state of affairs, but that's got nowhere. So at this point, largely it's got to be the continuation of living on their land and staying steadfast on protesting, forced armed resistance.
Well, Robert, Israeli occupation officials have deliberately neglected the Arab neighborhoods of the old city of Jerusalem, al-Quds, and its eastern sector amid this coronavirus pandemic outbreak, with zero awareness raising and sterilization procedures in those areas. Don't they realize that this pandemic actually does not see religion and it rather just jumps from one human to the other? I mean, how do they plan to eliminate the virus if they don't raise awareness and protect the Palestinians as well?
Well, I believe that Israel, the Israeli occupation, is the worst on earth at dealing with this, due to the fact that 50+% of the population between the river and the sea and what is Palestine, and these people under their control, under occupation, are Palestinians. They've completely ignored them. It's an interesting question you asked there, because the Israeli declared mayor of Jerusalem, al-Quds, even criticized the Israeli health ministry for the measures that it has not taken in East Jerusalem, because he himself recognizes that the Israelis, as well the Israeli Jews in West Jerusalem and the settlers, are going to suffer from the COVID-19 outbreak also, because it does not discriminate between Jew and Palestinian. So this is something that at least the mayor of Jerusalem, al-Quds, has picked up on, but the Israeli health ministry has not. And you look at the 150,000 people who are living in the refugee camps in East Jerusalem, al-Quds, then you're this entire population, which has been denied in what Israel claims is its so-called undivided capital. 150,000 people at the very least have been absolutely denied any even tests for COVID-19. And they're isolated behind checkpoints as well. So it's completely ridiculous for them to that they're trying to fight the virus and taking this seriously, when they've neglected over 50% of the people that live in that land.
Well, Robert, earlier last week, Netanyahu and his main rival, Benny Gantz, they signed a new coalition agreement that includes a specific clause to advance plans to annex parts of the West Bank, including Israeli settlements, starting on July 1st. Does this mean that we are looking up on a new wave of aggression against the Palestinians, which is maybe due in summer of 2020?
Yes, I believe so. And I believe that the Palestinians will stand steadfast and will protest this decision. And of course, as a result of the Palestinians standing up and attempting Israel to stop violating international law, the Palestinians will be shot dead and will be gassed and will be killed in big numbers if they have to be, in order to pave the way for what Israel wants to do. I was there in February of this year, when just after the so-called deal of the century was declared, and every single day we had a martyr. Every single day they were shooting people. And in the demonstrations that I attended, they were shooting people left, right, and center with 22 bullets, and they were dropping every few minutes you'd see another person drop and be carried into an ambulance. They'll continue to aggress, and I also think that there may be another aggression against the Gaza Strip, which may be coming in the future as well. Perhaps not this year, but maybe. It depends what they're planning, and it depends what the Gaza Strip does and how it this decision.
In hopes that this aggression stops against the Palestinian people, I want to thank you very much, Robert, and Enlightened journalist and political commentator, for joining us from London to talk about how Israel is exploiting the COVID-19 pandemic to expand its illegal settlements. This was our show for today. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for more from the Mideastream.